stop what you're doing. We want to hear your thoughts. If you're listening to Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave us a rating. 5 stars preferably, but we want your honest opinion. Head over to the podcast app and show us some love.
We want to know your thoughts on this topic. Leave us a message on the hotline. Call 347-719-3350.
Hey, can I get a popcorn? Can I get that popcorn with that extra butter? You got Twizzlers? You want to watch a movie? The show that discusses movies with the people who love them. Come get a piece of the bigger picture. It's your girl, DS Walls. I'm trying to catch these views from the back row. Cut.
Hey, welcome to Views from the Back Row, a movie podcast providing you with the real perspective on the movies. Just so you know, you can only find this show on the CWF network, where we bring you big content in small pieces. I'm your host, DS Walls, and I am so excited to have the conversation we are going to have today. We are going to be talking about black hair in Hollywood. Now, this really could be a conversation that lasts for hours, but I'm going to try and cut it down for you guys and give you some big content in some small pieces. So I think it's really interesting. What kind of sparked this conversation all over again was the actress from the Netflix show Sabrina the Teenage Witch, or you know what I mean, Sabrina and the Dark Side and the Devil. That show, there was a beautiful black actress with this platinum blonde hair, and she does these waves, and everybody's always asking her why she does these waves or who does these waves for her. And so she posted a video showing that she pretty much has to do her own hair, which is a common sentiment that takes place in Hollywood. And it started a stream of actresses coming out, especially the younger generation who are now experiencing it, like Vanessa Morgan from Riverdale and others people who are saying that they're experiencing this thing where they have to do their own hair, or they people come in and they don't know what to do with their hair. They fuck their hair up, or they just don't really try, which you can see when you watch TV shows and you're like, man, why is Black Girl edges rough, or why she always got braids in her hair, or why she always looks messed up. It's mostly because there's a hairstylist on set who does not know what to do with their hair. If you think about High School Musical, the actress who played Monique, she came out and said that she wore headbands all the time, not as like a character choice, but because the hairstylist didn't know how to do her hair right. So she put headbands on to hide her rougher edges. And this is just to name a few. So why is this happening? What's causing this to be a constant concern? Well, I was watching an interview with D. Wanda Wise, Elfanish Hadera, China Lane, and Margaret Ringham, and they were discussing being black in Hollywood, and they talked about the Guild. And the Guild is like the society for everybody who deals in Hollywood. It's what you have to be a part of to even win certain awards. But even hairstylists, like if you're going to do a certain Hollywood movie, you can only hire hairstylists who are part of the Guild. And most of the hairstylists who are part of the Guild are white hairstylists who don't know how to do black hair, because it's not even really something that is taught in hair schools to this day. They mostly work with straight, white, textured types of hair. So that's the mainline problem that then trickles down into continuous issues. And I've had this issue my entire life. Like, I get so mad when I see a black girl on a TV show or a movie with fucked up hair. Like, it shouldn't be happening. It's happened since I was a kid. It happened when I did a runway show at my high school. They hired only white stylists, so all of us black girls had to kind of congeal together and help each other lay down our edges and not look a hot mess before we walked out in front of our entire school. But it's just continuous thing where you either see them entirely with messed up hair, or you see them have to rock braids or their own wigs that aren't that expensive, because that's just what they can afford and that's what they had to do. So honestly, it's an ongoing issue in Hollywood, and I don't know how it's going to be changed when black hair itself is such a political conversation. It's a political conversation when it comes to the workforce. It's a political conversation when it comes to school. Little girls get their hair cut off. Grown women get told to go home and do something. You can't wear your hair a certain way in the army. Braids were almost banned not too long ago. So it's not surprising to see Hollywood, which is a reflection of the reality of how we live, reflect that black hair is something that is underappreciated and underworked with, to the point where Black women are reliant on themselves to fix it and make it something good, which then makes it even the more infuriating when white women come and jock it and call it their own. But that's a conversation for another day. Let's stick to this conversation at hand, which is just talking about hairstyling in Hollywood and the failure that exists around it. So I think that with all of that said, we have seen a shift in the last few years that has been glorious. I remember in the early 2000s, you couldn't find somebody who wasn't light skinned with their natural hair. Like, it was just perceived to be ugly, nappy, dirty, wrong. And slowly over time, we've seen more and more actresses embrace their natural hair, and therefore characters have to embrace their natural hair on TV shows and movies, to the point where now it's kind of hard to find somebody acting with a perm. Like, they might have a lace front, but it's weird if you see them with a perm. But even still, with that progression, there are plenty of people who don't get to live or exist in that natural glory. There is still a lot of colorism that prevents darker skinned women from being able to embrace and love their hair to the same extent that lighter skinned women are able to embrace and love their hair in their characters and on TV shows and in reality as well. So last year, Kat Graham, I'm jumping all over the place, but see if you can keep up with me. Last year, Kat Graham, she did an interview with Vogue that kind of went viral, and I think that really speaks to what this entire conversation is about. If you don't know who Kat Graham is, she was the underappreciated, horribly treating Bonnie on the Vampire Diaries, and she played Jada Pinkett Smith in the Tupac movie. And so she's been around for a little bit, but she had never dealt with her natural hair. Before the pandemic, she had never had to deal with her own hair, which I think is reflective in how fucked up her hair looks in some of the projects she's taken on. No tea, no shade, just truth. I've had problems with her hairstyles in the Vampire Diaries, in all of her Netflix films. I've had struggles with it, but she had never ever had to deal with her own hair. So when the pandemic happened and everything shut down and everybody was forced to isolate, she had to deal with her own hair for the very first time. And it took her on this entire emotional journey that concluded with her saying that she wishes and she can't wait for the day that she gets to play characters that look like her. Because in all of her roles thus far, all of her characters had straight hair. They either had wigs, fucked up wigs, or they had weaves, but they always had hair that wasn't what her hair was. She never wore her hair out in any of the projects she's ever done. And so while she's learning to love her hair and while she's learning to live in her hair, she said that she wished that she got to play characters that look like her. And I thought that was a very powerful thought. And I felt that that spoke to everything that is wrong with Hollywood in regards to Black women's hair. So with all of that said, what can be done to make it better? I think we're moving in the right direction with the way that we are seeing natural hair become a movement beyond the everyday people, and that we are seeing a spread of diversity and a calls for diversity. But these women are still having to do their own hair. This diversity needs to go beyond the actresses. It needs to go into the studio. It needs to go into the staff. It needs to be going into who's hired and who makes these creative decisions, who makes these calls on who gets to work with these actresses and things like that. It should be something that is done. It shouldn't be something they have to do themselves. And with that said, it should be something that hair schools are teaching in general. The norm or the default shouldn't just be white hair textures. It should be every type of hair texture. If you're going to call yourself a hairstylist, and if you're going to try and be a hairstylist who works on major projects and get paid major bucks, I feel like you should be somebody who can accredit themselves to being able to work with different hair textures. So that is a problem, and that's where it really needs to be solved. And I definitely want to hear hairstylist opinion on this, what schooling was like for you, what you learned. If it was one of those things where you went to like a black hair school where you learned to do black hair, or if you just went to a general hair school, if you were ever taught anything along those lines. Because I know most of the stylists I've worked with, they're self-taught. most of the people who've touched my hair have hair like mine. I don't go to people who don't have hair like mine because I know that they weren't taught to deal with hair like mine. So I'm very interested in hearing what that teaching is like and what needs to be changed exactly for us to no longer have this problem that exists, because it doesn't just exist for Hollywood, it exists for everyday women. I can't go to the mall and just walk into any Betty Boop store. Like, I need I need to know who's worked with black hair, how you worked with it, what texture it's in, because I've had plenty of experiences where someone has told me they can work with black hair, or they know what they're doing and they only work with perm black hair or mixed black hair and they don't know what they're doing, and I walked out having paid $100 and some looking like a fucked up poodle. I mean, it's crazy that this is still a conversation because it's been a conversation for so many years, but all the same, I'd like you to join in on it. This was just my opinion and just a little talk with me. Let me know how you feel about the situation, especially if you are in the hairstyling business and you did attend a school, or if you've worked on a set even. That would be really interesting to hear about. But be sure to leave a call or a text to do that on the CWF network hotline, 347-719-3359. Be sure to follow me at DS Walls and also follow the network at CWFP_. But I think I have ranted and raved enough. I have been your host, DS Walls, and these are my views from the back row.
This is the CWF network, where we bring you big content in small pieces. Follow us on Instagram at CWFP_. Okay, bye.